A spirited performance by the Clarets against Liverpool, but ultimately nothing to show for it. Is it too little too late? And this is the No Nay Never podcast. So welcome, Clarets, to another episode of the No Nay Never podcast. I'm Richard Steele and I'm your host tonight. Natalie, at the moment, is currently skiing, so she's very lucky while I'm in a very wet and windy Wigan. The Clarets' latest game was a really spirited performance against Liverpool. A lot of positives to take out of it, but ultimately it's another defeat. And with Newcastle winning, that gap to safety is getting bigger and bigger. We've got Adam and Tom on tonight with us. Gents, how are we?
Yeah, good. Cheers, Rich. Trying to stay positive.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that, because I imagine Tom's going to be a slightly less positive. Am I right, Tom?
I'm not making any attempts to stay positive whatsoever.
Right, but we'll keep the podcast on a positive note, though. So, Adam, I'll come to you first. We all know how good Liverpool are. For me, they're the second best team in the country, just behind Man City. You look at it and you wouldn't be surprised if it was a Liverpool-Man City Champions League final. So to play like we did, there is a lot of positives. But ultimately, it's another defeat, isn't it?
Yeah, they're a top team. Like, they've been to turf last couple of years and rolled us over 3-0, and we've barely touched them, barely laid a glove on them. So it really was encouraging, especially that first half. That they seemed to be having an off day. Mane, Salah only just back from AFCON. Probably a good time to play them, even though they did put out a really strong side and had a really strong substitutes bench. So if it wasn't going their way, I'm sure they'd have made changes earlier. But they were a bit lackluster. I think conditions probably played a bit of a part in that. But yeah, the first half, to go toe to toe with one of the best teams, and really, arguably, should have been ahead. Definitely should have been ahead by half time. 3 clear-cut chances, 4 if you include the one where Weghorst turned it round Alisson, and then he managed just to claw it out for a corner, which were flagged offside, but actually was onside when you look at the highlights. Yeah, really unfortunate not to going ahead. Obviously, then they get the fortunate goal. Really bit sloppy from our point of view, but soft goal. And then after that, I thought they controlled it pretty well from there on in. And trying to come from a goal down against one of the top sides in Europe is always going to be difficult.
Yeah, I think that's a really good review of the first half, especially. Well, Tom's just sipping a Peroni there, I think. That's very nice on a Wednesday evening. So, yeah, I think you summed it up really well. We had 3 big chances. So, Big Woot, Tom, Big Voot or Woot, whatever you might call him. He certainly made an impression. I think, judging by a tweet you put, I think you thought he was a bit of a donkey, didn't you? First game. Are you going to retract that tweet?
Yeah, I think people took my Weghorst tweet after the Watford game slightly too seriously, I think.
What, people take stuff too seriously on Twitter? No Nay Never.
Shocking, that, isn't it? There you go. So, yeah, I mean, I wasn't impressed after the Watford game. I thought he played very well second half against Man United. There was a lot to like about his performance, though, against Liverpool. You can see what his strengths are, and it's probably not what we were expecting. I don't think he's particularly good in the air, but his back-to-goal play is quite good if you get it to his chest or his feet, I think. He's a lot more mobile than Wood, despite being 6'6". He works very hard. He runs about a lot. But I have to say, with his goal record, we haven't created a lot for him in the first couple of games. He had that snapshot against Man United that he created for himself, and he was unlucky not to score. It was a really good save. But we've made some gilt-edged chances for him in that game, and his finishing really was, it was really bad, wasn't it? I mean, the counter-attack one where Rodriguez puts him in, the little dink. I mean, he doesn't strike me as a dinky type, to be honest. So why he's doing that and not just putting his foot through it, I'm not sure. But lucky Alexander-Arnold got back and cleared it for a corner, because it was trundling well wide. Otherwise, there was one as well. It didn't make the highlights of the match today. I don't know if that's because it was one of the many chances that was later found to be offside. But he's like he just sort of shinned it straight into the cricket field stand. It was woeful finish. So maybe it's a side turn, maybe it's the fact the conditions, like you say, he's getting used to the teammates, etc. But I have to say, I do think we look a better team with him in, and perhaps he's a bit like Vidra in this sense. Like, I always think from an attacking sense where you get a different dimension when Vidra plays, but he doesn't get your goals because he's finishing so bad. And that's
is that a bit early on Weghorst?
Yeah,
though?
it
is it a bit early? You know, you look at, I know the Bundesliga's, I totally agree with you. That first one, I have watched a few highlights on Weghorst, and you know, when he has had a few chip finishes, but again, you could make me, he look good on YouTube. But I think since 2018, I think it's only Lewandowski who's got more goals than him. But at the Premier League level, playing for a team like us, that first chance, we don't create that type level of chance against most teams. Never mind Liverpool.
Yeah. It is early days, and that's why, like I say, I was, tongue in cheek when I'm slagging him off, whatever. But he's coming into a team that is probably low on confidence, doesn't create a lot, and doesn't score many goals. So I'm not expecting him to come in and net 10 in the second half of the season. But having said that, they were bad finishes, and that's got to improve, and it's got to improve quickly if he's going to be the source of goals for the rest of the season. And by the way, I'm saying this now, I very much hope he's back fit for Saturday, because he's a cut above what we have got up front. Let's put it that way. And I do think he's shown that he's got a bit more about him than, for example, Chris Wood has, and certainly since Wood went to Newcastle. I'm sure they're not too keen on him either. So I'm being critical, but I don't want that to come across as if I've written him off, or I don't think he's going to be an asset for the rest of the season, because I'm sure he will improve. Having said that, I have to say, given his goal record, I might have expected a little bit more with the chances that we created for him in that Liverpool game.
No, I do agree with that, Tom. I think it is very early to say. Like I said, we've seen a small sample size of him. He had that great strike against United where I think 9 times out of 10 that hits the back of the net. It was a great save by De Gea, but his finishing on Sunday was poor. That first one, I was on the edge of my seat, and like you said, I think it wouldn't have even made a goal kick if Alexander-Arnold didn't nearly smash it into his own net. It's a really difficult one, isn't it, Adam? Because I think if that was first game of the season, that performance, even if we were lost 1-0, we'd have been going off the turf with a real, sense of pride, wouldn't we? And there is still pride there, but ultimately we need points now, don't we? And people say that. I seen a tweet that someone said, well, we don't get judged by our results against Liverpool and City. We get judged, but ultimately we get judged by our results against Watford and Norwich, and we've been awful in those games. So we do need to start picking up points in these games. We've got, Leicester and Tottenham at home to come. We need to start winning some of these games, don't we?
Yeah, I think Tom summed it up quite nice last week. Like, ultimately, every game's a cup final now. Yeah, normally we wouldn't be expected to get anything, but we need to win some of these bigger games now. So yeah, we probably needed to start doing that against Liverpool, especially with the Newcastle result that you touched on before. With Weghorst, yeah, I completely agree with what you and Tom said. Looks a real decent acquisition, but again, we really need someone to put the ball in the net. And with his goal scoring record, you do expect him to do a lot better, and you do want him to just put his foot through it and hit the target. I thought Alisson did. I thought he was brilliant. To be fair, like they might not need him in a lot of games against the lower teams, but I've always been really impressed with him when he's come to Turf Moor, but especially this time, he made those 3 or 4 chances as difficult as they possibly could be. You look at his positioning and how big he makes himself and how quick he gets off his line, and you've got to give some credit to him, but you've got to test him better than we did as well.
Yeah, just sticking with you then, I think that's a good point. I think there was the Rodriguez one, and when you watch it back, you think, well, it's it first time, but he probably thinks he's got more time than he has, and then all of a sudden, Alisson's at his feet.
Yeah, he's on him.
Yeah, sticking with you, Adam, you mentioned before about a sloppy goal. It's frustrating, isn't it, when you have those 3 chances and they just punish you, don't they, the big teams? And that set-piece goal, it was so sloppy, and it's just kind of, we've been a lot better defensively recently, but that's just been a story of our season a little bit, hasn't it? Just little sloppy goals and, just that little edge you need defensively, just before half time.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate. Like we've limited them to nothing pretty much first half, and with the players they've got on the pitch, you expect them to create a better level of chance than what they did. Defended really well. All the back 5, and even Westwood and Brownhill, which I'm sure we'll come on to. I thought we were a lot better on the weekend, but yeah, defensively we couldn't really fault us. And you can get a run on a corner and get there first, and then it's a good save. Obviously, it's coming in really quickly, but for him to bounce straight back into his path, you're just thinking, come on, give us a bit of a break. But yeah, that's the sort of goal you expect us to hopefully be scoring against the big teams. Not if they come and score set pieces, then you don't really stand much of a chance, do you? So again, all the theatrics with getting the ball on the spot and the flag blowing in Alexander-Arnold's face and all that, and just showed again the conditions were tricky. But yeah, it was just really frustrating after what had been a brilliant first half not to go in at least level.
Yeah.
It just, I don't think it took the sting out of us, but once you go 1-0 down, the battle's pretty much done for them, innit? But I think we kept plugging away second half, just didn't really trouble. And I actually think they controlled the game a lot better when they brought Thiago on. Just really kept hold of the ball. We got at him centre midfield until he kind of came on and just, it seemed to kill it a bit. But really frustrating goal to concede, especially the timing of it.
Yeah, definitely. We were absolutely done that last 10 minutes, weren't we? We just couldn't get the ball at all. And, one of my favourite people's Neil Warnock. He might be a bit controversial for a Burnley podcast, but I watched his documentary and he said in the changing room, all that quality and you concede a goal from an effing set piece. And that's exactly how I felt going from that game. I'm going to come on to some individual performances because I felt there was a lot of positives, really. But first we'll come on to the major news at 2:00, and I didn't even notice it, to be honest, until my auntie said, was that Dwight McNeil was on the bench. Me and Tom's had some funny exchanges on the podcast this year with Dwight McNeil. I personally think it was the right decision. I've said in the past that he's lacked effort. I still agree to my comments to a certain extent, but at the same time, I think he's just lacking confidence. And I think Dyche did a really good post-match interview about Dwight McNeil, about how he's kind of got confused about his role and how Dyche just wants him going back to basics and doing what he did when he first got into the team and running down the line and instead of turning in circles. Tom, I know you've been a big defender of Dwight McNeil, more of a defender than what McNeil's done anyway this season. That's a joke, by the way, before I get ridiculed. So do you think it was the right decision, though, to leave him out to the side in that game?
I think that's been part of the problem. He's been doing too much defending, not enough attacking. They always go on about how many tackles he's made, like put some crosses in, man. I think what you said there about, I haven't seen Dyche's comments, but it's obvious that he's not doing what he used to do, get down the touchline, get balls over. So, those pirouettes where he takes 17 touches and turns in a full circle. So frustrating. For me, it was a strange game to drop him because I think in previous games against Liverpool, he's always done really well against Alexander-Arnold. So I thought it was an odd one to drop him for this particular fixture. But I said on the podcast after the Man United game that I thought it was a strange one not to play Lennon in because he's got more of that defensive discipline. He does trap back a lot more than McNeil and Cornet. So it made sense to me that if you're going to play Cornet, then you would leave McNeil out for that game and have Lennon, who's a bit more disciplined. I didn't think we got Lennon on the ball very much. He struggled to make an impact. It also means if you've got McNeil on the bench, you've got him to come on for 20 minutes, maybe with a point to prove. I'm sure you agree, Rich, that he's been looking a bit leggy. I'm not even going to say that with a straight face. It was the right time, I think, to drop him. Whether he's complacent, whether it's a thing of I'm in the team every week, it doesn't matter how I play. But it's obvious to everybody that he's not playing well. He's not doing exactly. I mean, like I said, I've not heard what Dyche said, but it sounds like he summed it up perfectly there. He's not doing what he was doing in the last couple of years. That's made him one of our most potent attacking threats. So apart from the fact that he was up against Alexander-Arnold, or he would have been up against Alexander-Arnold and he usually does well in that duel, I didn't have a problem with dropping him. And from the first half performance, it obviously didn't have a detrimental effect on the team, so can't complain at all.
Yeah, I know what you mean about Lennon, about he didn't get put. I just thought the intensity was higher with Lennon in the team. He was pressing. Like I said, he defended very well, which isn't ultimately his main job. But he gets a little bit of stick, Lennon. But to be honest with you, I actually think he's been excellent since he's come into the team, since that Man United game. And I think he's given us a little bit of thrust. Listen, he's obviously not the player he was. He was a fantastic player in his day. But he very rarely gives the ball away. He works really high, and I think he gives our in midfield a bit of intensity. And I think since Roberts has come in as well, we've definitely looked better down that right hand side. A player who always gives a lot of intensity is Josh Brownhill. Lacks quality on the ball at times. His ball retention and the way he manipulates the ball can be quite poor. But Adam, I thought he was absolutely excellent on Sunday. I thought that was clearly his best game for Burnley. I thought he was confident on the ball. There was a time, you can tell he was growing in the game. He did a few skills. And as always, he worked really hard. And like you said, I thought Westwood and Brownhill had the better of the midfield, maybe until Thiago come on.
Yeah, really impressed with him. So much better than previous. We could have really done with that level.
Better than Stevens anyway, Adam.
Yeah, quite a bit more
Stevens
energy than that Watford performance. Yeah, well, Brownhill were banned for that game, so we couldn't really do much about that. But no, yeah, so much better. There were a couple, like you said, a couple of sloppy touches here and there, but overall, yeah, I thought it was brilliant. Really got into him. Similar to against United, even when in the first half and it wasn't going our way against United, I thought like him and Westwood did a good job of getting stuck into Pogba and McTominay in that first half, even if we weren't getting the better of the battle. And yeah, same again. Thought they matched up really well against Liverpool and gave us that platform to create the chances that we did. So yeah, hopefully that can be a positive sign going forward, because obviously we're stuck with what we've got. We need to do better in that area, and yeah, we've just got to make the best of that now, and hopefully it can carry that on and get some momentum. Even had a couple of shots on target, I think. So
yeah,
maybe he got some confidence from that. Great finish.
He's got a good strike
into his
on
own
him.
Net against United.
Yeah. He's got a good strike in him, though. You see the goal he scored against Millwall.
Yeah, belter.
I think, obviously, with Dyche, he probably doesn't play, he doesn't get as forward as much as he maybe likes to. So, coming on, we might see the best of Brownhill in the Championship.
There's been some times, though, where he does get into a position and then just, like, really shanks his shot. Like, you think, I've seen, again, YouTube of his time at Bristol City, where he's, like, really banged some in from outside area. And I just don't think, well, apart from the Millwall, I've not seen that at all. So at least you're hitting the target, showing a bit of ambition as well when he did get forward. So yeah, really good.
I did think I wanted to come in because I was quite critical of Brownhill last week, and I agree with what's been said. Probably his best game, and he was so much better on the ball than he has been previously. His distribution was better, and his shooting. Yeah, the player that I always come back to, with that goal against Millwall, absolute cracker, and like you say, he's obviously got it in his locker because that was fantastic. But it always makes me think of Dean West. Do you remember Dean West used to score like a 25-yarder like once every 2 years, and then the rest of the time just nothing. I just think if he'd done it more than once for us, I'd believe. But all I think when I see him line up a shot is Dean West.
Yeah, it's a good analogy. Yeah, it's a good comparison, isn't it? Dean West, Jesus, that's a blast from the past, isn't it? Dean, good right back. Yeah, sticking with you, Tom, and I'm gonna give your loyal fan of a sister a mention on the podcast, and I know she is the number one in the Eric Peters fan club. I've always liked Peters just because he's a bit of a novelty factor. I felt, he always gives his all. I tell you what, wasn't he bloody good on Sunday, Peters? I know Salah's just come back from the African Cup of Nations. He literally didn't give him a sniff. He played in that Arsenal game, Peters, and obviously he's not had a lot of football and he struggled against Saka. He was happy, and you can see he's growing in confidence more and more. So yeah, I just want to give your sister a bit of a shout out for that one, Tom.
I think with Peters, these kind of games are the ones he's best in because I think he's a lot better as a defender than he is as an attacker. So, the games where he's just got to sit back, he doesn't have to come over the halfway line too much, nullify his man. He works hard, he's a grafter, he sticks to him. He put some great tackles in on Salah, like you say, he kept him quiet for the majority of the game. I think the problem that you have when you've got to play Peters is games like the Watford game where you need him to go over the halfway line, you need him to give you something going forward like Taylor normally does. And, that Watford game, I thought he was really poor, and that's the deficiency to his game. But, I mean, in terms of like a backup left back, he doesn't cost much, never whinges. He's kind of a Graham Branch, and he's played all over the pitch for us, never complained. So he's a good squad player to have, and I agree with you. Yeah, I thought he was good against Man United as well. And I did think he was good on Sunday. So, yeah, I'll give that one to my sister.
But sorry, Eric, from me included, if Taylor's fit for Saturday, you're back on the bench, lad. But probably worth a new contract next season anyway, no matter what league we're in. Any more, gents, on the Liverpool game? I think, we kind of summarised the first half, when the chances, Second half was non-eventful. I thought Liverpool were really comfortable and could have defended till another 90 minutes really. Some good individual performances, but any more?
I think just maybe on Cornet, probably another quieter day for him.
He's rubbish, weren't
he? We flattered to deceive. Really got close to a few bits, but similar performance to his last couple of games as well. We really need to see the Cornet that we had before the African Cup of Nations, and obviously the injuries as well. That's kind of broke up the momentum, but it's really important, especially with this run of games we've got now, that he starts finding some form. Because it's hard to be too critical because of how brilliant he's been. We wouldn't be anywhere near where we are now without him. Just really hope he starts banging in them volleys and half volleys again from all over the place.
Go on, Tom.
Just a quick one for me as well. Tarkowski again. I know we mentioned it last week, but again, putting to bed anything about he doesn't care, he's not trying. The one that epitomised it for me was just near the end of the game. Salah got away for probably the only time in the whole game he got away from it, rolled it across. Jota's got a tap in, and Tarkowski just appears from out of nowhere and does enough to put him off, and it's a goal kick. So yeah, I thought again that's worth mentioning. We know he's going at the end of the season, but I don't think he's going to stop trying until he has gone.
Fair play, Tax. You were rubbish against Leeds, but you've come back with a lot of character, and just can't fault you there. Really, it's a great tackle that. Yeah, just on Cornet, you have got to factor this in as well. The weather these last 3 games has been absolutely horrific. And I think you got to remember that. I agree with you, Adam. He's been useless, hasn't he? But I still love you, Maxwell. If you listen to the podcast, it did make me laugh. He was on holiday somewhere, obviously. When Ivory Coast got knocked out, he was living it up on jet skis, having these nice meals. It looks like he was in his family, probably 30 degrees. And then he's back on a plane and he's back in bloody Paddy. And I bet he's thinking, what am I doing here? So hopefully the weather will be a little bit kinder to Maxwell on the South Coast on Saturday.
Yeah, he came back with short sleeves against Watford, didn't he? First half, and then gloves on. Second half, long sleeves and gloves on.
And I was surprised he didn't put his hats on. Yeah, no, Dirk. Listen, it's very. You want. That's what you got to. Where Dice says. This is where some of these lads who. He's from. I think he's come from Lyon and played all his football in France and been in Cameroon. Like you said, the climate is so different, isn't it, to what he's used to. But I'm sure Maxwell will come back far, and I'm not sure about him on the. I know we played left back for Lyon, which absolutely baffles me. It's like putting Peters up front that. But I still like him down the middle. But I think Jay and Weghorst have got a good partnership. But I think it's one of them where if Weghorst isn't fit, you'll have Jay up front with Cornet, and McNeil will come in. So obviously moving on to the Brighton game. Before we do look at that, obviously Newcastle got another win. Trippier scored another free kick. It's a difficult one, isn't it, with Trippier, because he's one of my favourite clarets, but it's just gut-wrenching seeing him play for Newcastle and kind of pushing us back into the mud more and more. He's obviously got an injury, which he might be out for a few games, but, we're 7 points away from safety. Yeah, we still got games in hand. There's a lot of people who are saying, well, Brentford's the team that we're going to catch, where we have got 4 games in hand. We still got to play them away from home, but 10 points is a lot of points to make up. I seen a stat the other day. It's only Derby County who's only won 1 game after 20 in the Premier League. And I put a tweet out the other day where there was a lot of positive reaction. I thought I was actually positive with my tweet. I said, this might sound negative and maybe a bit reactionary. I still want to have hope, but I'm kind of getting to the point now where I've accepted it. There's no point whinging about it. It is what it is. That's part of football. It's not nice. Nobody wants to go down. But at the same time, you've just got to face reality. And I don't want to give up hope completely, but just with our recent record and, and everything like that, I just can't see us overturning these deficits. Adam, am I being a bit too negative, or, are you still thinking, what, we've got 3 games, because I always look at 3 games ahead personally. We've got Brighton away and then 2 home games coming up, 2 midweek games. Do you still think we've got a genuine chance?
Obviously, if you ask me now, we're a lot more likely to go down than we are to stay up. While we've been on runs in the past that would get us out of these sort of situations, but you look at 1 win in 24 games or whatever it is, it was like that the year we went up. Like we'd won and drawn so many, like teams chasing us 6-9 points behind us. We weren't going to drop those points, and it's kind of similar now. You just can't see us winning the amount of games that we'll need to win to be able to get anywhere near, especially with Newcastle and even Everton, but particularly Newcastle picking up points like they have.
That takeover's a killer, innit?
It really is. And
I think if that didn't happen, we could have stayed up with 30 points.
Yeah, they were poor as well. But like last year with Fulham, West Brom, and Sheffield United, you just always knew there were three worst teams in you. And quite a lot of this season, you've been thinking there aren't really three worse teams than us, even before the Newcastle takeover. I think it had been a struggle. But yeah, the Trippier on, same as you, absolutely loved him at Burnley. Still love him now. You can't, obviously, you don't want him doing what he's doing at Newcastle, but you can't. I don't think you can't be critical. He's a top player doing his job. Obviously, you probably wouldn't expect him to have the goal scoring influence that he's had since he's been there. But yeah, it's just one of them things. They were always going to strengthen. They've probably strengthened more than I thought they could do in the position they were in. And yeah, it's going to be a real uphill struggle. But I've not given up hope yet. There's still nearly half a season left. We're going to Brighton at the weekend, where we've got positive results before, a few draws and a good win when we were struggling 2 or 3 years ago. There weren't much between the sides at Turf Moor. Obviously, completely different styles. And I find myself thinking, you shouldn't do. It's ridiculous to think this, but what if? I think we were 1-0 up and Goodmanson in the inside of the post, and you just think, even like there's so much passed under the bridge, and ultimately we've got the same squad. That goal goes in. How does they're not coming back from 2-0 when we were battering them that game. How would the season have gone now? But like I say, it's pointless. But it gives me hope that we can go there and cause them problems, especially with Dunk out, with Duffy and Webster. So it's pretty similar, but he's a bit of a talisman for him.
He's good though, Webster. He's a good player.
Yeah, he has been good. Yeah. We'll see where we can go after Brighton. I think it's one cup final at a time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Newcastle form's just a killer.
I absolutely agree though. That Brighton game, we hammered them first half, and I think we had Liverpool away, and then I think we had Leeds at home. And we've ended coming out with those first 3 games with 1 point, and we could have so easily got 6. But again, hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it, Tom?
Definitely.
Just similar views to you. Obviously, you know the position you're in. I know you're very balanced as a person. You know you try and use your head to figure out situations, and I think you're kind of in the camp that I am really, where you kind of you just accepted what it is really, and if we stay up, it's just an absolute unbelievable bonus.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it logically, you know, if we were talking about another team here without the emotional attachment, we've won 1 game out of the last 24. That we didn't improve the squad in January. There's 2 teams that are just as bad as us, probably Watford and Norwich. But you look at the other team that we could potentially catch. They've spent £100 million more than us in January. You know, they're going to be better, and you know they've started winning games. So it's difficult to see how we're going to turn that around when we don't really have the options in the squad to make a massive change to the team. And also, you'd say as well, we've got a manager who's pretty risk averse and not inclined to change too much in terms of the formation or anything like that. With regards to the Brentford thing, that does make me laugh a bit, because people say, Brentford, they're in free fall, they could collapse. If you look at Brentford's last 7 games, they got 1 point from 7 games. They're already in free fall, they're rubbish. They're still 10 points above us. We've had that chance. We've had them last 7 games to make up points on them, and we've got, you know, they've been able to afford to get 1 point from the last 7 games and still be 10 points above us. Now, are they going to be that bad for the rest of the season? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. You know, we aren't good enough to take advantage of that. It's the sad fact when you look at you know everything on paper. If we are going to stay up, we're going to have to put a run together where we win 3, 4, 5 games in a row. What is going to change that we suddenly become a team who's capable of doing that? No idea. So unless we get some sort of miracle, then you've got to be realistic about it and say, you know, you'd be daft to put money on us to survive at this stage. And like you say, I've made my peace with it. Well, I say that now, I'll still be gutted, of course, if and when it happens. You know, you've got to be realistic about it, I think.
Yeah, it's just that one, isn't it? You know, there's been some performances that have been good, but we've just not had that little extra kick, have we, to get over the line to have the win. And when we've been in winning positions, we've just seemed to capitulate a little bit defensively. You know, and the goal, you know, we have been better defensively recently, but then the goals have just completely dried up. I think we've only conceded 2 in the last 4, but I think we've only scored 1 in the last 4. I might be wrong on that stat, but that seems pretty right. I think we've only scored against United. You know, that for me, that Watford game, you know, sealed it for me. I just went off so despondent after that game. It was hot. You know, the weather was out. It was just horrid to watch. And, you know, it's one of them, innit? You know, like, we could be here in 2 weeks' time with 7 points from 9 games, but it just doesn't look likely, does it? Like Tom was saying, we need to kind of, you know, put on a run where we're averaging 2 points a game over a period of time, or, you know, in and around that. You know, will 35 points be enough to stay up this season? Who knows? You know, if 35 points is enough to stay over, then Brentford only need another 10 points, 10, 11 points to do it, you know, from their remaining games. So they can still be pretty rubbish and still get those points. So it's one of them, like, I'll keep back, you know, I'll keep backing the lads like we all do on this podcast. You know, we'll keep going. We'll still cheer him. I think all of us on here have renewed our season tickets because, you know, no matter what league, we always will. But at the same time, it is just looking really difficult, isn't it? But again, you never know. Brighton on Saturday. I think Brighton are a good side actually this year. You know, the 9th in the Premier League. Yeah, they do draw a lot of games too. You know, but they don't lose many. It's just going to be one of them where, you know, we're just not going to have a lot of the ball, are we? We could get completely outpassed. But at the same time, if we manage to score one, I think we could defend against their style of play. But I'll tell you one thing that we've got to get better at again is corners. I've mentioned it before loads on this podcast. Too many times we're just hitting them straight at the keeper. We don't look like scoring from a set piece at all. So, yeah, but I think that's it. Any other points, gentlemen, to kind of summarise to finish the podcast up and moving forward?
Would have some hell of the Lancashire derbies if we do end up going down. Potentially, anyway,
Wigan,
if Wigan doing well and Blackburn, I know Bolton have dropped off again, haven't they? But Blackburn, Preston, Wigan looking likely. I know I don't want to think about that, but just trying to clutch anything. Just kind of miss those derby days.
Yeah, regular listeners to this podcast know that I'm a born and bred Wiganer, so the thought of playing them doesn't appeal to me really. Growing up, you know, I always got a bit of stick being a Burnley fan, so it's been quite nice having Wigan just away from us. But, you know, good luck to them. They're doing well, and, you know, to be fair, Adam, it would be good. I quite fancy playing Preston again because I think we'll beat them. To be fair, Tom, anything from you?
No, just to say, you know, the Brighton game, it is a winnable one, I do think. But I've got that nagging suspicion that every Brighton game seems to finish 1-1. So somehow we'll get a fluky goal from somewhere. They'll get a fluky goal from somewhere. And I don't think a draw will be enough. But if we can get a win down there, it will get the belief going. We've got winnable games coming up. I think Leicester and Spurs, it's good time to play both of them. Palace away, they're not playing well. They won in 2022, I believe. So, you know, if we can get a result down there, maybe it'll kickstart the season a little bit. So I'll be going down. So fingers crossed for a bit of positive, seeing a good result.
Quality stuff, Tom. Quality. I just want to say then thank you to the listeners. You know, as always, you know, you keep the podcast going. Thank you to our regular panelists, Adam and Tom, for their wonderful insight. Thank you to producer Matt, you know, for editing the show. He always has a job on when Natalie never hosts. Thank you to George Gaskell for doing the music for our podcast, for our lovely little intro tune. I've been Richard Steele, and this has been the No Nay Never podcast.